things are going, as you described, in that direction, that hadn't been a guarantee. How much credit can the government take?
Well, this is really interesting. As I said before, it wasn't like set in stone that what went up would then come down. It's taken a bit longer to come down, but it hasn't taken as long to get to the 1970s. That's a pretty low bar, I should say. But to sort of join the politics and the economics here, you can see that there has been a turning point of sorts. It hasn't been enough for the Bank of England to start to turn their interest rate cycle, to start cutting after those 15 years worth of rises in 15 years. So there's a couple of questions here, which is, do people feel it? And I go to the point about the price levels being higher. And then, if they do feel it, do they give credit to the current government? And that is what there is a furious argument about right now between all the different parties, throwing numbers in all different directions, claiming that the other guys are more dangerous than you.
If it wasn't guaranteed, though, had there been actions that you could attribute to the decisions made by the Chancellor and the Prime Minister, who was the former Chancellor?
Well, this is where it gets a bit tricky for the government, because I think what you could say is, well, we didn't make it worse. Whereas perhaps the policies being pursued in their own party, big borrowing, that might have made these trade-offs much more difficult. So they did prevent what was occurring when they inherited government from their predecessor, Liz Truss, and in the budget. They would point to things like the payments, the pay rates for public sector workers as having had an impact that is. Not everybody agrees that they've had a huge impact on the inflation numbers. Others will say, well, hang on, this is just the mechanical impact of the energy prices coming down. They're going to come down further next month as well. So it's limited. They didn't want the blame when the inflation went up. The amount of credit you should get is maybe in proportion to how much blame you're willing to take on the way up.
It's interesting. Well, we'll be able to put that to Mel Stride, the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. He's coming up just before 8 o'clock. Faisal is BBC Economics editor. Where the politics meets the economics. Maybe that should be your news strap, man. Thank you very much.
That's right. It's Shadow Chancellor Roger Rose at 10 past 8. Yes, and we give it a half time. It's 13 minutes past 7 now. He didn't live here. He lived in, say, Pyongyang, and he switched on Good Morning North Korea. That's what you might have heard on breakfast television this morning.
정의하는 김정은 동지께서 울라디미르 비치 푸틴 동지와 감격적인 상봉을 하셨습니다.
Now that really should be the new sound of the Today programme, I think, in many ways, but the serious stuff beneath all that pomp. And we're going to discuss it now with the Associate Fellow at RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute, Natia Sescuria, who joins us on the line. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
At the heart of this is a simple trade, isn't it? Guns for butter, or whatever foodstuff it is that North Korea needs.
Yes, indeed. It is a transactional relationship that Putin desperately needs right now because, as we know, there aren't many visits that Putin can pay right now to different countries because of Russia's isolation and as a result of the war in Ukraine. However, obviously, he has received a red carpet treatment in North Korea, and this is a relationship that both countries need right now because both are, as we know, isolated from the outside world.
How valuable is that appearance of being welcomed somewhere? How welcome is the fact that someone publicly, Kim Jong-un, supports the Ukraine war?
Well, this is a second visit that both leaders have paid to each other in 9 months. And North Korea has publicly endorsed Russia's war in Ukraine, something that many leaders have avoided doing, even so, as we know, for example, Putin and Russian officials have been paying visits to Central Asian countries, for instance, but these countries have been extremely careful not endorsing Russia's war effort in Ukraine. However, obviously, Kim does not have much to lose in terms of endorsing war in Ukraine, and he has been quite clear about what this relationship means for North Korea and why they decided to side with Putin in this case.
Now, in their public declaration, they go beyond mere friendship between the two countries and trade. They talk about creating a, quote, engine for accelerating the building of a new multipolar world. Translate that for us, and in that new multipolar world, do they mean China as well as Russia and North Korea?
Yes, indeed. China is the main trade supplier to North Korea, and Chinese officials have also endorsed Putin's visit to North Korea. And this is a very important message for Putin as well, because obviously Putin relies on China much more since the beginning of the war in Ukraine. This is some sort of strategic partnership that they are trying to develop. The most important, most sensitive issues they mentioned were discussed during this visit. So it looks like we will see North Korea supplying more weapons to Russia, and as we know, they have been already doing so, and Russians have been using the drones supplied by North Korea to kill Ukrainian citizens in Ukraine. And in exchange, Putin might have promised some sort of aid when it comes to energy and food supply to North Korea.
Nate Seskira of RUSI, thank you for joining us.
17 minutes past 7. More news about yet another potential company being bought out of the London Stock Exchange. Sean's back with more. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Emma. Yes, this is the multi-billion pound deal, one of Britain's biggest investment platforms. If you've got money in stocks and shares, maybe an ISA, Hargreaves Lansdown has grown to become one of the biggest providers of the services to do just that, with almost 2 million customers. Now looks set to be sold to private equity investors, led by one called CVC, in a deal worth £5.4 billion. A few weeks ago, I spoke to one of the co-founders, Stephen Lansdown. I asked him if he was happy to accept that bid.
Just a tweet, I suppose. You know, the share price has fallen quite a long way. The bid has revised the price. The price has moved up. At this point in time, it's a fair value as long as the conditions of the sale are correct. So you know, it's got to be right for clients. It's got to be right for the business. And it's got to be right for the shareholders. We now just need to go through the due diligence.
You said you needed to know more about the new owner's plans for clients and staff. So what have you been told that makes you now feel okay with this?
Well, I haven't been told anything yet, but what the situation now is that we have a firm bid that's been going to be recommended to the shareholders, assuming all the DD goes through correctly. And then from my point of view, during that the next month or so as that's taking place, I'll get to know more about what the buyers intend to do with the business, how they intend to run it, what changes, if any, they propose to make. All those sort of questions we'll be able to ask and find out about.
Could you still imagine that you may not approve the deal yourself?
I think it's very difficult at this stage. I think a lot of the board has done a good job on this. I think they feel comfortable. They're talking about the right sort of numbers, and I mean, we want to do their own due diligence and give their recommendation in the future. But they said I think in the announcement they've made that they feel it is the right thing to do to put it to shareholders. So we'll then make a judgment then.
We've heard this morning, thinking about this, that there are different types of private equity business, some that may damage a business for the sake of short-term profits. Do you have those concerns here?
Well, naturally, I mean, that's what private equity is about. It's finding something on a what they think is good value that they can then invest into and grow it to a certain size and move it on again. I mean, with Peter and myself, when we first started, 40 odd years ago, it was a long-term venture. What the new owners are, we don't know whether they are looking long term or whether they're thinking that in 5 years' time there'll be new owners, but we just have to wait and see.
And just finally, what is it about the London Stock Exchange and being listed on it that makes you think that's not the best place for the business probably right now?
You are in a goldfish bowl when you're on the stock market, and you're subject to all the vagaries of people being able to buy and sell your shares in an open market, which is an advantage because it gives you it gives more people to invest in the business and to grow the value of the business. But you also have the reverse, because you have the hedge funds and people who take a view that they can force the share price down and gain by investing against the company. So you've got a lot of illustrations there of problems brands that exist in the market. Also, making long-term decisions is not so easy in an open market situation where you have to announce everything. So, being a private company, you can do things at more at your leisure and grow the business in a more considered way.
He mentioned he'd not made up his mind yet what to do with his stake. Still one of the biggest shareholders. Still some questions to be answered for Stephen Lansdown there, co-founder of Hargreaves Lansdown.
Sean, thank you. 21 minutes past 7. Throughout this campaign, we're looking at some key political battlegrounds between Labour and the Conservatives in this election. One of those that the Today programme has adopted is Bolton West. We'll be there next week. Now, both main parties have put the economy at the heart of their pitch to voters, as we'll be hearing in interviews later in the programme. We thought we'd look at the economic picture in Bolton. What is holding business back there? Rowan Bridge, the BBC's North of England reporter, has been to find out.
Bolton's historic market hums to the sound of shoppers. The place feels alive, but beneath the surface, the picture's more complicated. Charlie Ray's been in the market for 25 years. She says rising costs are impacting spending.
We've been through some tough times on this market, and I've seen it come and go. At the moment, people are here, and I think they have chosen to be a bit more wise with the cash.
Do you think they've become more frugal?
Yes, I mean, I've always been frugal. Now I am seeing my ways attracted to a lot more customers. Yeah, definitely.
A 15-minute drive from the market is the town of West Horton. It lies at the southern end of the Bolton West constituency, and on its outskirts you can hear the sound of economic development. A forklift truck moving pallets on a new housing development. And it's taken almost a decade to get the homes from the drawing board to where they are now, in the teeth of strong opposition from the local authority. On West Horton's Market Street, a blue plaque marks the spot where a group of Luddites attacked a steam-powered mill in 1812. These days the politics in the town are a bit more sedate, but the views are still heartfelt. The new housing development may be a marker of affluent households attracted to the area, but it's created its own concerns.
I feel bad for the wildlife that are in there, lots of deer and things like that, and but you need houses.
Was there opposition to that housing development going ahead?
Yeah, definitely. Because they don't feel like they need new housing in that particular area. There's other areas within Bolton that they could build new houses, like Brownfield, is it, and things like that.
By mid-afternoon, some of the roads around the town are thick with traffic. It's something local residents blame, at least in part, on the development. It plays into a broader sentiment that the area needs better infrastructure, and that the north of England more broadly is missing out on the foundation stones for growth.
Well, I mean, I don't know too much about the transport systems down there, but I would imagine the South seem to get all the money for all these developments and railways. I mean, you can't even pretty steep HS2. I mean, that's been put on hold, I think, now at the moment, so really, we don't seem to miss out.
The concerns about infrastructure are echoed by the Chamber of Commerce. Hello, Lauren.
Yes.
In a converted dye works on the outskirts of town, Warren Bolton is helping build the new industries of the 21st century. He's the managing director of the software company Invisu and the Bolton president of the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce. He says money's come into the area, but there's a need for more investment in skills and infrastructure. But there's another bigger picture issue he wants politicians to address.
We've a proud history in this country of innovation, invention, but we don't commercialise well. That's where we fall down, and that's where we need help. And by doing this, I think we would expand our reach internationally, punch way above our weights. We can intellectually. Why can't we take that intellectual knowledge and make it the best it can be for this country? And we could do that if we had more government help.
The economy, housing, the cost of living, they're fundamentals that help drive how people vote. And whoever convinces the electorate in this seat they have the answers could take it from the keys to Downing Street.
Rowan Bridge reporting there. Now, on Monday, that's the 24th of June, Jeremy Hostings in Bolton West. Interesting, I hope, if you live in the constituency, but also give us a picture of the issues as they affect people in different places of the programme. If you live in Bolton West and you'd like to apply for a free ticket, please email today at bbc.co.uk, and remember to include a contact phone number and your questions, what you'd like to hear the candidates asked, particularly about things that are local to you.
It's 7:25. A severe weather warning has forced the cancellation of pre-match events ahead of Scotland's second round 24 match in Germany against Switzerland this evening. Heavy rain has been falling in Cologne with hail and storm gusts forecast, but that has not stopped some Scottish fans from putting on a brave face.
The incubation was absolutely fantastic. Lovely, lovely people. Everybody's been mingling, to be fair. Everybody, all the fans. It's been great.
What would you say to them? What would your message be?
I love you.
You need to tell them, why do they need to win or play a result? What would it mean to you?
Everything.
Susie McCabe, a comedian who's covering Scotland's run on Late Night at the Euros on BBC Scotland, is there in Cologne. Susie, hello.
Good morning.
How's the weather, first of all?
Oh, it's very Glasgow. It's very clean, very wet.
You're ready?
It feels like Hampton. It feels like home.
That's a good way of putting it, because the atmosphere, from what we could just hear from that small clip, take us to it. It doesn't sound like it's gambling, excuse the pun.
Absolutely not. No, I went up into Cologne yesterday. The Tartan Army had really started to descend on Cologne, and actually in Bonn, where I'm based. And the weather's not been great, but they're still there in their football tops and in their shorts, and it's just been a wonderful experience. And Scotland fans are just embracing it. They're just like, well, it is what it is, and we are where we are. Let's just enjoy it and make some friends.
And is it friendly? Is it still feeling like that? What's the hopes for tonight?
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. Yesterday I actually walked through a square with 5 pipers behind me, and all the Tartan Army fans came in, some Swiss fans came in, and even the one solitary England fan, they were like, come on, and you come, and he came in, big hugs, and walked behind us. So yeah, I mean it's just a fantastic atmosphere. I think everyone is just hoping, let's get something. Let's just take it to the last game and make it all or nothing. A win or a draw will do tonight.
That's it. Rain or shine, we'll see.
Survival. That's what I was looking for. Survival.
Are you there? Is that right? You're there with Martin Compston, the actor?
Yes. So Martin and Gordon Smart are hosting a show called Late Night at the Euros. So I've been in the studio a few times, and that's in Munich, and the boys are now coming in today to head up to the game, and it's what an incredible experience, and they've been fantastic company, really good guys, really good guys.
I'm just wondering, because he obviously played Steve Arnold in RMG, so he's a big football fan as well, but I'm wondering if you're feeling like you're policing the event, having him alongside.
I feel that I'm mothering the event, having him policing the event. Yeah, the two of them are just great guys. Up for a good bit of fun. They've made a great bit of television. It's on the BBC Scotland channel, but they've actually moved it to BBC One Scotland as well for a repeat. And it's just been it's that kind of old school 1990s zoo TV vibe, with a live audience, guests, and I come in with my postcards from Germany.
I should also say it's on BBC One, in case people are just thinking it's on BBC One in Scotland, as well as iPlayer on the sports website. It's good to always flag that. Any predictions just for tonight, for the score?
I'm going to be overly optimistic because I've been to the gym this morning and say 2-1 Scotland.
Susie, I like it. Fighting talk in the rain. Susie McCabe, thank you very much for that. Good to talk to you. There you go.
29 minutes past 7. There's a lot more been going on in the
It sounds like it's going to be pretty squishy in Cologne, doesn't it? Yes, and it was pretty rainy last night for the 2 games that took place. 3-1 to Turkey against Georgia and 2-1 to Portugal against the Czech Republic. Those are the results which completed the first set of group matches at Euro 2024. Today, well, of course, as we've been hearing, it's crunch time for Scotland. And defeat in their second match by Switzerland after that 5-1 walloping last Friday by Germany would almost certainly mean that they wouldn't reach the last 16. Here's Scotland captain Andy Robertson.
From a player's point of view, we had to look at ourselves, and I think everyone done that.
come Saturday night, we had a meeting on it, and then, Sunday we were good to go and kind of move on from it and try and look ahead to this game, because now we've got, 2 more chances to do that, to try and stay in this tournament.
Kick-off is at 8 o'clock. We've been hearing it's live on both BBC One television, but also, of course, on 5 Live. Well, now, is British tennis looking up? Well, maybe it is, with Jack Draper winning his first ATP title in Stuttgart at the weekend, while at the same time, Katie Boulter was retaining her Nottingham title, both of them current British number ones. And even Andy Murray is keeping retirement talk at bay with a first-round win yesterday in the pre-Wimbledon tournament at Queen's Club in West London. Tennis correspondent Russell Fuller is there for the week. Good morning, Russell. There was something of the old fiery Murray in his 3-set win against Alexei Bobrovich, wasn't there?
Yes, morning, Rob. A fire that will never be doused, I suspect, whether we see it in a coaching capacity in future or a Davis Cup captaincy role. But as a player, he may have just the 3 tournaments left: Queen's, Wimbledon and the Olympics. And this was very important because it was a first win on the ATP Tour since injuring his ankle in Miami in March. And nice for him to be watched by his wife, his mum, his dad, and his brother was also no doubt looking down from the balcony in his tournament director role. They'll get another against Jordan Thompson of Australia again.
Well, as for Jack Draper, he also completed a first-round win at Queen's Club. What are you seeing in Draper? How far do you think might he go, not only in this tournament, but beyond?
Well, he will have to play Carlos Alcaraz, the defending champion, in a second round on Thursday, but Draper actually says he feels a lot calmer now he's won that first ATP title in Stuttgart at the weekend, which had been very much expected, but then he had to deliver. And he's also, Rob, in the process of changing his approach at the moment. He's trying to be more aggressive, dominate other players, take some risks, and he says try and do what a 6'4" man should do. He used to feel as if he was 5'6" when he was running along the baseline trying to return other big players' shots.
And yet, there were 2 retirements yesterday, weren't there? One of them, Dan Evans, is worrying perhaps Katie Boulter's less so.
Yes, Boulter said she was feeling unwell, even though she won the title in Nottingham on Sunday, and so retired after the first set of her match with Angelina Kalinina. Evans, in contrast, described himself as heartbroken. He retired very early in the 3rd set against Brandon Nakashima. He fell, just as Francis Tiafoe had done on the same court the previous day, heard a crack in his groin, but says he's less worried about that and more concerned about his knee. He'll have a scan probably tomorrow, but as we talked this morning, he doesn't yet know whether he'll be able to play at Wimbledon or the Olympics.
Sounds concerning, doesn't it? And finally, there's a new name to consider, isn't there? It's the name of Billy Harris.
Despite being the age of 29, but he beat Thomas Martin Echeverry yesterday to record only the 2nd ATP Tour win of his entire career. And he is a man, Rob, who spent much of that time grinding between.
It's cheaper, it's faster, it requires little or no preparation in the manner of a traditional funeral, from a wake to a final committal. And for some people, the attraction of that kind of no-frills exit is not just financial. Perhaps they've abandoned religion, if they ever had any. They have no interest in rituals. They might even try to elude death itself with an AI-generated avatar that continues to speak beyond the grave. Brief tech, it's sometimes called, and I can assure you it's already a thing. But when it comes right down to it, who is a funeral really for? And do these changing choices mean we are becoming a society that no longer values a proper send-off? That's tonight's Moral Maze, after the news at 8.
Sounds fascinating. I didn't know anything about brief tech. Look forward to that. Thank you. All that coming up later on Radio 4. Keep it here with numbers. A look at the weather. Today we'll have sunny spells and patchy cloud for most, with a chance of a shower in the west. Cloud building and across the far north, with spells of rain moving into northwest Scotland by the evening.
You're listening to Today. I'm reading forward Emma Barnett and Nick Robinson at 25 to 8. Alan Smith has got a summary for news.
Inflation has fallen to its lowest level in almost 3 years. The Office for National Statistics says prices rose at 2% in the year to the end of last month. That's down from 2.3% at the end of April. The easing in the inflation rate was driven by a slowdown in price rises for food and soft drinks, recreation and culture, as well as furniture and household goods. Russian media say the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has told Vladimir Putin that their countries need to improve their strategic cooperation. Two leaders have been meeting in Pyongyang after Mr. Putin arrived on Monday night. The United States says North Korea is supplying Russia with artillery shells and ballistic missiles used in Ukraine. In return, North Korea wants help with its satellites as well as food, fuel and foreign currency. Labour has suspended one of its candidates in the general election following reports that he shared pro-Russian material online. Andy Brown, who's standing in Aberdeenshire North and Moray East, also shared a post that appeared to play down allegations of anti-Semitism within Labour in 2018. He's yet to comment. The SNP is to launch its election manifesto calling for a major investment in the NHS. Scotland's First Minister John Swinney is expected to urge the next UK government to increase NHS spending by a minimum of £10 billion a year. The manifesto will also include plans for investment in other public services. Public inquiry into the Post Office Horizon IT scandal will hear from two former executives at Fujitsu, the company which built the flawed computer system. They'll be asked what they knew about the faults that led to hundreds of sub-postmasters being wrongly convicted of fraud. And representatives of the GMB union will meet workers at Amazon's warehouse in Coventry as they prepare for a ballot that could force the retailer to recognise a trade union in Europe for the first time. Employees will vote next month on whether they want the union to negotiate on their behalf about pay and conditions.
Alan, thank you very much indeed. It's 23 minutes to 8. As you were just hearing there, the SNP are launching their election manifesto this morning with a headline pledge of more money for the NHS, more money for Scotland. We're joined by one of John Swinney's cabinet members in the Holyrood government, Fiona Hislop. Morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, for those who don't follow these things carefully, don't understand the difference between what people do in Westminster and what they do in Holyrood, help us out. Is it the Westminster government or the government in Edinburgh which runs the NHS in Scotland and sets its budget?
Well, the Scottish Government is responsible for the delivery of the health service and making decisions and prioritising what we want to see in the health service, and that's why we've managed to pay our staff more than in England. And a nurse, for example, an experienced nurse can earn more than £3,000 more than in the UK. But of course, our budget, and this is the important point, our budget is set in the Scottish Government by the Westminster Block Grant that comes to us. So the more that
it's
Labour
affected by the
NHS,
grant, isn't it? It's not set by Westminster. Just before you attack another party, in reality, you do set the NHS budget in Scotland, which is why you can choose to pay people more, doctors, as you.
Which is why we've made a decision to raise taxes slightly more in Scotland for those that earn more, in order to put £1.5 billion more into our public services.
Exactly. So let's turn to your record then, shall we? You're calling for more money for the NHS.
Well,
you spend more.
You asked me to explain, if you don't mind, you did ask me to explain those that might not know the difference between Westminster and the Scottish Government. The key point is it's Westminster that decides what grant that would come to us, and that if Labour and the Tories continue with public service cuts and austerity, there will be more funding for the NHS. Unless we're calling for, which is to invest £10 billion more to allow that investment in the health service that we can then benefit from as well.
Understood.
So we are back to Westminster, as West Streeting said, all roads go back to Westminster when it comes to NHS and NHS funding.
Yeah. You do run the NHS in Scotland, you've said so. You do set the NHS budget in Scotland, you've said so. You tax more in Scotland than in England, meaning that somebody pays 42p higher rate tax if they earn just 43,000, they pay 45p if they earn just over 75,000, much more than they do in England. And yet, the NHS in Scotland has much longer waits for NHS treatment. 7,000 still waiting more than 2 years, 37,000 waiting for over a year. As someone said to John Swinney in the recent Leaders debate, shouldn't you tidy the flat before you choose to move out? Shouldn't you, in other words, show that you can do your job as the Scottish Government before you demand more powers, more money and more independence?
Well, we do our job. We employ more per head in our health service than the rest of the UK. We know that driving down waiting lists means that we have to make sure we've got the staff to do it. Brexit hasn't happened hasn't helped in terms of making sure that we've got the staff and resources that we need. But of course, we do have the best waiting times in terms of A&E. In terms of the rest of the UK, we have done for the last 9 years.
But it's the worst ever figures in Scotland's emergency department, isn't it?
Of course, there's challenges everywhere.
No, they're the worst figures ever. What you're saying is a good thing, is in fact the worst ever figures for A&E in Scotland, but they're slightly less bad than they are in England.
I don't know. I'm not know if you're aware, but we've also had challenging times everywhere, not just in the UK, but elsewhere, following the pandemic, in terms of trying to make sure that we have that recovery. We're investing more in our recovery. We're investing more to help our health service, and that's what we think the rest of the UK could and should do. We don't have strikes in Scotland. We haven't had strikes today, whereas you in England are facing more in terms of the junior doctors' strikes. We value our public health workers, and that's why we have chosen to pay them more to help them.
So if you have power in the next Westminster Parliament, sorry to cut you short, I just want to give you the chance to answer what your MPs will hopeful. If you do get power in Westminster, it's possible, I think, that you could hold the balance of power in certain votes at certain times with the next government. Just to be clear, is the SNP a vote for higher taxes throughout the UK because that's what you think is needed to pay for public services?
Well, we believe in public services. We believe we have to pay for public services, and we think the UK could benefit from that experience we've had in being able to pay our public service workers.
So what's the answer to the question? Is it a vote for higher tax?
If you let me continue, and indeed to invest in tackling some of the challenges that we have, like waiting time. I acknowledge that.
Could I invite you to continue by answering the question? Is it a vote for higher tax?
I'm just about to come on to that. That means you have to make a decision as to where you find the funds to invest in public services. We think that the UK and the Labour government that is likely to come in should do what we've done in Scotland, and those that pay should pay slightly more if they earn slightly more.
That's great.
That's what we've done.
Just time for one last one, if I could.
Way to invest in our public services. And I can tell you, in terms of Scotland, that social contract we have with the people, where everybody benefits, even for paying slightly more taxes if you earn more, because we think that's fair. We are the only sector
very clear. So I just want to ask you one last question.
That's prepared to say what's important about how you invest in public services.
I don't want to be rude by cutting questions, but we have limited time for each interview, and I'm just giving you the chance to answer a final question, which I think you'd want to answer, actually, which is, you're asking for more MPs. Difficult time for your party after you're on your third leader since the last general election. Last time you said, vote for us, we'll stop Brexit, we'll end austerity, and we'll get a new independence referendum. The reality is, you weren't able to deliver any of those things. Wouldn't Scots be better placed voting for people who have a strong voice inside the next government rather than shouting it from outside?
I think you'll find it's been the SNP MPs that have championed all the issues that matter to the people of Scotland, on the cost of living, for example. And of course, now with both Labour and the Conservatives as pro-Brexit, we are the party that will call for membership in the European Union. We think that these are the things that will benefit the people of Scotland. It's quite distinct, I suspect, from what the audience are hearing from other parties in this election,